Hey, Cantina Cast listeners, it's Jonesy. We were originally going to record a new show this week to continue our coverage of the Rising Storm, but real life kind of got in the way. Fortunately, Albert and I did a Q&A session, just really between the two of us last week for Patreon, and we had such a great time, and we were really excited about where it went. And the cool thing is a lot of the questions that we were able to ask each other are things that we would like to come up in normal shows, but might not always have the opportunity to do so. So we thought this would be a really cool opportunity to put this out for everyone to hear, and hopefully you guys get as much enjoyment out of it as we did. We really had a tremendous time doing it, and it really fits in with the overall Rising Storm coverage that we're trying to do. So we've trimmed out the show and tell part of it, but if you'd like to see the show and tell that Albert usually does and some of the things that we talk about, you can find those on YouTube with our normal channel there. We're going to go and publish it there so you can get the whole hour and a half. This will trim it just to the stuff that makes for better listening in general. So hope you guys enjoy it. We will be back live hopefully next week once things clean up a little bit for us here. Otherwise, may the force be with you guys, and we'll talk to you really soon. Thanks.
Load Cantina Cast Patreon content.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello there.
Yeah, we're all laid back, man. I'm chilling out here in Studio C. I have a studio everywhere, apparently. So we're calling this Studio C now. So
Yeah.
a little bit different place. It's my chill location.
You look very chilled.
Got me a frosty beverage.
Beverage. Yep. Sitting back in your chair. Oh, hey guys. Welcome to the Patreon show for episode, I guess 345 at this point. And
well, hold on. We were on 384, and then we just finished 385.
Yeah, 385.
Really
I've not been drinking, I promise. It's
right, and this is really the follow-up to 384 that it went on for like almost 3 hours. So we were like, we're calling it. We can't do this all night.
That was a pretty long episode. So
we were both beat after that one.
Hey, but hopefully you got your money's worth on that one. But we're back for a Patreon episode, and for this episode, there were just some, I guess, outstanding questions that we had coming off of the Rising Storm. So we said we'd kind of lump them all together and get into it.
Would you say there were so many questions?
There were many questions that have left to be answered. That's Jonesy's work. So congratulations.
We're back on our game. I think we missed it the last Patreon. We didn't have anything clever.
You sure? I think we did.
Oh, no, maybe it was this one we were worried about not having anything clever.
Yeah,
but we pulled through.
Yeah, you were clutch on this one, though. So thank you for doing that. Otherwise, we wouldn't have done the show.
Yeah, Clutch City down here, baby.
Let's see. And I don't know that we'll have all the answers to all these questions. Certainly some of this stuff is like so far out there still that to be determined. And we're going to do this on the day of new releases. So these are High Republic questions, and we got covers, and we'll talk about these on the main show later this week, but we got the covers and some information about what's coming up here in the High Republic. So we'll try to weave some of that into this as well, since it is part of the news and without actually talking about it.
You got a good looking background there. I knew you were going to be all over that one. Yeah, he's got his girl Avar from the new High Republic that's coming out in January, right?
Yep, that's in January.
Yeah.
Further proof that God is woman. So
so it was really funny before we get started in 385, we were doing the Tempest Runner. The entire episode, I was like trying to find a time to make fun of you, because I don't know if you go back and watch that video when you were editing it, but it looks like Avar Chris's hair is your hair.
Oh, nice. Really?
Yeah. It's like, it's almost like it is right now, actually.
Yeah.
It's like you got a wig on. Yeah, there you go. And man, it's just like, what's his name had to say? It's just the flowing robes and the hair, all of the hair.
Andric,
yeah. So anyway, I wasn't able to work it in. Of course, then by the end of it, I was like, all right, I just want to go home.
I need to work the background and move it over to the left a little bit. That way you see her face, because I'm not doing her any justice at this point. But you're right.
Yeah.
But well, let's do this.
True. Yeah, that's such a cool cover, though. I love it.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And again, we got more to talk about on all of this stuff. The Wave 3 covers, comics coming up. It's just been a Christmas
It was a
Day for
whirlwind
us.
day. Yeah, it
Mhm.
was.
All right, we'll just jump into these questions here, and I'll throw the first one over at you. All right, you see you had in here the artifacts to control the leveler are still a bit confusing to understand. In the High Republic Adventures, Yoda thought it was interesting, but does he really know anything? Does he? And so I think their question is,
Right.
does he really know anything about how to control the leveler?
So in the High Republic Adventures, to refresh people's minds, Yoda and some of the younglings were on a Nihil ship, and Yoda is hiding, right? And he looks over at this crate and kind of opens it, and the what was it? It was the purple light, right?
Hmm.
That we got, and we still don't really have a lot of clarity over what these components are, do we?
No.
Okay, yeah, yeah, right. So, but Yoda said interesting, like he actually knew something, and I think it's been referenced before. Didn't Yoda come back and reference it? I think in High Republic Adventures that there was something on the ship. I think with was his name Crix, the boy,
Yeah, it was a little bit later. I think you're right. Yeah, maybe
yeah, it was
two issues
I think a
later.
few issues later, yeah, before Yoda has, of course, disappeared yet again.
Again.
All right. So it was really confusing to me that whether or not Yoda actually saw something or if it just gave off this vibe or this aura, or something that was something about it. And why didn't he take it with him? So it was just more piecing all these things together. And the way that it was described in The Rising Storm was almost like the way I pictured it. So correct me if this is wrong. It was almost like, putting two halves of a sphere together and kind of turning it and it locks into place type of thing. Now, that was my mental image, and I'm probably way off, but there was some sort of mechanism that he was controlling, but it didn't seem like, I'm like playing a video game or pushing buttons to unleash the leveler.
Hmm.
But I really put this question in to get your take on it to see, okay, did I misinterpret some of this stuff? And does Yoda actually know anything about what's going on or about what this is, or did he just get some feeling from it?
Yeah. So the short answer is we don't know because like you said, it's not been discussed, and I'm sure it'll come up later. So purely speculation on my part. But I read that and took it as he may be aware that something like that existed at some point. Because if
Hmm.
based on the timeline, it's very possible that the Drengir, when they were running amok, and the Sith partnered with them, predates Yoda. So he may have some knowledge that this at one point existed, or something of that design or architect existed at some point, and now he's run across it and thinking, interesting. Looks similar to maybe a story I heard or something I've studied in my lore as as a Padawan or whatever, right? But that I didn't take it as though he knows exactly what it was, because I think if he did, he would have taken it, and we would have, like, it seems like that would have been such a huge piece for him to come
Hmm.
forward. Like, he would have brought that to the council, or it would have made its way into the Rising Storm, or at some point, or say, look, the Nihil are a threat, and they potentially have this artifact that I know does this or whatever, right? So I don't think he
Right.
really ultimately understands what that does, but the fact that they have it was an interesting aspect to him, intriguing for him to see. I really wish they would come back to that, because that is still just burning out, because it was so early on in that line. And
Yeah,
we've not really had any revisitation of that.
exactly.
And he's, like you said, he's disappeared now. Like, he's gone, like Yoda's gone. And I mean, conveniently, he keeps missing out on these huge monumental events that are happening during this era. And part of it is, I think we talked about this. Part of it is the minute you throw Yoda, it's the Luke Skywalker effect. Like, what are you going to do with him? He's such a badass. You're going to have to figure out a way to challenge him. Otherwise, he's just going to mop everybody up, and the whole thing's over with. So
Yeah, right.
I get it. But I think to just on Yoda really quickly, I think he is going to come back. I hope. Well, I'm going to put money on the fact that he is going to make an appearance finally in Falling Star, and some of, if not all of, what he's been doing while he's been missing and on his little whatever adventure. He's like Uncle
Sabbatical.
Traveling Mac. Yeah, Uncle Traveling Mac from Freckle Rock. He left, and he's out doing super high adventure stuff, and he's writing back in. But eventually, I think he's going to come back and bring a really, like, heavy dose of reality to people. I think there's got to be something still that we're not seeing, like a big twist that's coming up. But
Right.
I'm going beyond outside the scope of that. Sorry.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just thought it was like I'm with you. It was weird that they brought it up so early, and then they even came back to it, and Yoda actually made a comment about it in a broader Jedi, like a reminder, and remember the artifact. I was like, well, why didn't you take it, Yoda? I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
man, swipe it, dude. It's
Yep.
fine.
Yep.
But yeah, and I thought similar to you. I was like, okay, Yoda's been around for a long time. He's about 600 or 700 years old in this, 700 ish, something like
Hmm.
that, right?
Yeah,
7.
700 ish.
yeah, he's probably still seen some stuff, and I was curious how far back the Leveler particular goes. Is this something that predates Yoda, or is this something that would have happened in his generation that he would have been semi-familiar with? And was he around the last time of the Sith? And I'm a little blurry on what some of those details are about when the Sith were actually defeated. Now the Old Republic stuff is not canon ish, and now that we don't really know what specifically predates this and where the Sith were or have been for a significant amount of time, we have really stopped talking about the Sith entirely.
Yeah,
I mean, which
isn't it weird?
it's very odd, yeah, because we spent so much time, talking about them in the last year or so, and now it's like, huh, who? It's like they're almost like the Drengir. They're really not that important anymore.
Yeah, exactly. They're there, but they're not really important.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So I had a question for you. Okay. So the next one here is when Elzar goes to, what was the name of the planet where
he was on the moon of Ashla.
Move Ashla. That's right. So when he goes to Ashla and he is plunging himself into the water and basically forcing himself into almost a near death experience. I mean, not intentionally, I think out of frustration and out of just sheer will of trying to make something happen. Do you think it's really possible to force or induce a force vision like that? Like just to do significant amount of stress to yourself to where you can actually make that happen. I think we brought this up in the main show a couple weeks ago, but it always struck me a little bit funny if that was just something they could really make happen on their own if they just present the right set of circumstances, or is it no, this was really just luck that he made this, that this actually
Mhm.
worked.
I think so. This is a really good question. Like we should do more on this one because I think it's possible, and I think I don't know that again. The Jedi, when we get to the prequel era, have any idea or any. They don't know that this is even possible at this point. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. It's probably something that would be shunned upon, right? Like I don't know
Right.
that it's a good idea to go out and try to induce these kind of visions, but it's almost like it reminded me that whole scene, and that really there was so much in the Rising Storm we never got to talk about. But one of the things that I had in my notes at some point was that to me felt like have you ever heard of like a sensory deprivation tank,
Hmm. Yep.
right? Where they put stuff on your ears and your eyes and put a tube in you and they submerge you underwater. And there's some health reasons, some health benefits that are probably not, vetted and all that come from it. But normally what you see that sensory deprivation tank used for is for people to have these psychic visions or be able to touch like the ethereal and have touch ghosts like in Stranger Things. It was in there. It was in what was it was in X-Files. They had a couple in there as well. There was that one show on Fox where they had it was all about the Fringe. You remember that show?
Hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So there was a separate sensory deprivation tank that we used every once in a while for her to have her visions and all that. So to that end, I think that's what he was trying to go for, and it makes sense from that perspective. But the simple answer is it possible? Yes. Do the Jedi real? I don't know that the Jedi, even in this era, I really would question whether all the Jedi, if everybody would be like, yeah, just keep doing it. It's totally fine. Is there something that feels unnatural about that, enforcing it? Like it's hard already just to have a force vision naturally and trust
Mhm.
what's going on and really not try to see too much into it so that it's not a foregone conclusion or it's self-induced prophecy kind of thing. But if
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
but if you're out there like seeking it, I mean,
That's
and
a
that and
that's
that's
a dark that's a potential dark path where
exactly
you're trying to influence the future, right? You're trying to understand more than you're supposed to know.
right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that one. I think it's a really dangerous technique to do. But I found it very interesting though that, and again, I don't know that he was trying to force it to happen, but I don't know if I it was really more out of desperation, I think, than anything else. Right.
Hmm.
I mean, he was just desperate for something, anything. He
He's
felt
trying
so
to stop the badness.
yeah, he's so out of control about what he's doing and what should he be doing with it. He doesn't have enough to do anything with it. To where he's basically kind of doing a self-induced madness of sorts just from he can't shut it off. He can't stop the feelings and the remembrance of everything that it was and just the intensity that original vision was in Light of the Jedi. And so it really it was interesting watching it just force a character into this really difficult and really kind of a sad state. Like I felt so bad for him because he just wants to do so much good, but he is just man,
Yeah.
he's just starting to slip, and it's a really quick slope sometimes.
Yep. No, I agree. It's kind of sad, and I don't know that we'll get any more of that too. Just speaking of Elzar Mann, like this whole Ty York relationship, again, something we
Hmm.
really didn't dig into on the main show, so we're doing now. But that is really gonna. I think it's gonna do a lot for him. I think they're gonna complement each other really well. I don't know that they'll ever go anything more than just an amicable working relationship kind of thing. And I can't see, like she already said, you're not my type, so I don't think there's anything there. I wouldn't put it past him to try still Elzar Mann the
Right.
way he is. But
Well, they were both a little flirty. I don't think it was just Elzar, man.
no, you're right, and I hope they follow that as well. Like she keeps saying no, but does she really know? And I don't know that she does.
Right, because Ty, they kind of she's at least bisexual. I think there's some they hinted that with Claren. I think it was Claren, right? She was like, well, maybe another time it would have been a good little fling type of thing.
Hmm.
So at least the door is open for you, buddy, for
Right?
Elzar Mann here. Maybe you have another one to try to tack onto your. But God, that's horrible to say.
Yeah, I know.
But
That's him. That's his character. He's just out there, doing whatever.
he doesn't mean to. He just kind of, for lack of better terms, falls into it.
Yeah,
It gives into it, I suppose. Yeah.
he's a very passionate, emotional person, and
He's very passionate. There you go. In so many different ways.
yep. Okay, let's do the next questions for you. All right, this is a good one too. So, Markion Rowe. Now, try to. I want you to take into account the cover of The Eye of the Storm, which is a comic book coming out by Charles Soule in January that features Markion Rowe looking like Simba on Pride Rock. But
Do we have that image available? Do you have that?
well, while you're talking, I can try to pull it up if you want. But
Okay.
so yeah, try to take that into account. But what is Rowe's end game here? Like, what does he really want out of all of the effort that he's putting forth here?
It sounds like it's going to be multifaceted. I think there's a few things, and some we just don't know yet. And I think the things that we might not know yet are what is the vendetta against the Jedi, and what's the vendetta against the Republic? Like, what is driving that need to just annihilate them? And some of this, I think, is just his history of with his father and feeling like he's been undervalued and we're not even undervalued, just really stepped on his entire life and made into,
Hmm.
like he's soft and everything else. And he wants to prove himself to the galaxy at some point. Now he's a bit patient with that in some regards. There's some inconsistency in the characters about how he's been written, but for the most part, he's trying to do something to that effect of really making a name for himself, but trying to do it in a very smart way. He really comes across right now as someone who just wants to watch the galaxy burn. And those types of people always confuse me because if you burn the galaxy, there's nothing left, right? I mean, I guess there's always something. It's a big galaxy. There's a lot to burn for a while, but at some point, there's got to be a reason. There's got to be a method and a reason behind that madness. And to me, it just has to come back to the Jedi. There's got to be some link with the Jedi that he is just hell bent on striking them down. Hence the leveler, right? The leveler is clearly a Jedi defense mechanism, or really more of an offensive mechanism. But again, until we get some of that background, it's really difficult to answer that question definitively about what it is that he really, what he really wants out of it. Did you have another perspective on that?
No, I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat. It just feels like right now it's as simple as he wants them gone. Like it feels like something happened in his lifetime, his people at war at some point with the Jedi that they were crossed and has always. It's almost like the Mandalorians and Jedi for so long, right? Those wars that were going on, and there was
Right.
they'd been going on for so long. Half the time, people couldn't even remember why they were even fighting anymore. Same kind of thing here. This is such a long, long arc rival that predates him and probably Asgard and everybody else. And so really it's a matter of just trying to and they for all we know, their people have just been diminished and taken down to maybe just the two, I don't know, or the three, or maybe there's a small handful left as far as what that race and that culture was like because they were wiped out by the Jedi or the Jedi did something that caused their extinction. And
Mhm.
so for him, it's like, okay, they're on a pedestal. They think they're better than everybody else. They're really not. And the only reason they have an advantage in life, and only reason they can do all these great things, is because of the Force, which we as normal people don't get to have. Like that is,
Right.
it's not fair that they get it and we don't. And so we're going to level the playing field. We're going to eliminate that, and so that's how the leveler came about. And so this thing, it feels like there's just a big vendetta kind of thing that's going on here, a revenge at some point for him. And it could be much more. I hope it's more complex than that. I'm sure it is, but on the surface, that's kind of what it looks like right now.
Right. So if you'll permit me to ask you a follow-up question, there's the Eye of the Storm cover, which is, yeah, Markion with his in the storm, his hair whipping behind him, Loden's yellow lightsaber, glowing brightly, casting this very dramatic shadow in his helmet in his hand.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited about this book.
Yep, and it's Charles Soule that's writing it. So
yeah, you just know the Charles Soule Darth Vader comics were so terrific that you can just imagine what he's going to do with Markion Rowe here.
And get ready for all the variants.
Oh, I'm ready. My wallet is ready.
Yeah,
kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your follow-up question?
Yeah. So the follow-up question was the leveler. They kept calling it a shrine. In Rising Storm.
Yeah, they were at a shrine. Yeah.
Okay, but why would it be a shrine that was guarded by these droids that then attacked them pretty much immediately? They were like, "Go away," and that was like their only warning, and then they attacked them. If it was a shrine, the way we equate it, at least, a shrine is usually a place to come worship, right? It is a place to come and pay respects and to meditate and those types of activities, right? Contemplative activities. Yet these droids acted like it was, they were there to defile it very quickly. Do you think those droids really had a different purpose, that this really wasn't a shrine, that this was more of a protection that someone put there to safeguard the leveler from anybody else doing this? But because it seemed like Kufa and Markion understood like there was guardians to it. But anyway, it really confused me a little bit how they kept using the word shrine, but it really seemed like it was very protective for a shrine, that if it was their shrine, they were very unwelcome.
Yeah, so I think it's one of two things. Either those things are there and they're there to protect the shrine and protect anybody that comes in, period. That's probably one reason. That's probably the weakest one. I think maybe the strongest argument is they don't. So Markion Rowe and was it Kufa? I forget her name now.
It was Kufa, yeah.
But those two, whatever his race or whatever being is, they actually don't own the leveler. Like it's nothing that is. It's only subservient to them because they found a way to control it. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So when they got there, they have a device. They know about it. They know it's got defenses that have been put in place. And once they get rid of those, then they have a way to control it. But it isn't loyal to Markion Rowe for any reason other than he's got this device he's able to control it with. But if you were to trace it back to who were the original creators or owners of this thing that maybe those Sentinel droids wouldn't attack, I don't know that we know that who that race is or that person is or entity is at this point.
Okay. All right. I just thought I'd ask because it was a bit unclear to me in that respect. Okay. Here we go. Number 4. Do the Nihil care about the threat of the Drengir, or did they just assume the Jedi Republic would eventually take care of it and wanted to divide the Republic forces, especially since they don't have a truly united defense force at this point?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I don't think they really care about the Drengir at all. It was
Do you think they ever feared them though?
I don't think they did, and I think it was out of ignorance. Like I don't know that they have any kind of history like the Jedi do, or anyone has really, of how far back this thing went, how far back it goes with the Amaxian warriors and the Drengir. We don't have any context of when that battle was. We just know it was a very, very long time ago. So I don't think they knew. I think he was like, okay, wow, this seems like, because he stumbled upon it, right? When back in was it Out of the Shadows? Oh, Into the Dark. In Into the Dark, Claudia Gray's book, they stumbled upon the space station because of the Nihil that were there, and they called Roe, and they got there, and I think he just realized, holy cow, there's these things here. We don't have that picture really. Honestly, we don't have any of that subcontext, and we may not now because of how far we are in the timeline. But he then decided, okay, well, I can use this to my advantage and start populating the galaxy with this Drengir threat, that'll pull their forces away, split them up, tax them on resources, whatever. They're going to have to fight all these battles. And by the time we get to the Rising Storm, it's again been a year. And we know that been a year-long battle with the Drengir, and they've taken over entire planets. And the Jedi have had to go in and liberate these planets and free them and run the Drengir off. So I think it was more of that. And he was waiting just for the perfect opportunity to come in and then, finally do his attack, which was obviously the fair, right? The Republic fair. But
And it wasn't in one of the just the regular High Republic flashback comics where they had come across like the remains of Nihil when encountering the Drengir that appeared to have been a Drengir Nihil battle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it seems like they did have some sort of conflict, but yeah, again, without motive and without maybe the Nihil were successful for what they wanted. We know they were trying to get seeds or spores to reseed the Drengir across the galaxy, so maybe it was successful in that regard.
Well, and I don't. No, you're right. And here's So a finer point. I mean, there's a point of clarification. Like, I never got the sense that there was a union that was struck, right, or an agreement or some kind of partnership that was struck with the Drengir.
Yeah, there doesn't seem like that's possible anyway.
Yeah. Well, the Sith did it, right? They had struck a deal back a long time ago before the Sith backstabbed them, the Drengir. So
right. I think at this point though, that doesn't seem.
No. Yeah.
The Drengir aren't having any of it, right?
No, they just want to eat, right? They haven't eaten in a long time. So, but yeah, so I think they were forcing them to shoot, jettisoning them onto planets and letting them just kind of start spreading like a disease, literally, but against their own will. Now, I don't think they were putting up much of a fight either, but they don't know they don't know the Nihil from anybody else. So there probably were many skirmishes or battles between the Nihil and the Drengir as part of this kind of seeding or this population seeding that they're doing.
The Drengir made that pretty clear too, that they don't care who you are anymore. They don't care about the factions. They don't care. I mean, they clearly understand the Jedi from the Sith, and they were, no, we don't care. We treat them all the same. We can't trust any of them. We don't want to trust any of them. This is our time now to just, like you said, just feed.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, your question. Do you think the Jedi have been humbled at all at this point? And what's it going to take?
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely signs of it. Right. I think we do get some. I think Stellan. I think of everyone, I think Stellan has had to really eat some of that humble pie because he got his ass kicked by Lorna, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he kind of got a redeeming moment when people saw the emotion when he was holding Lena. So, but I think it's another thing though. He's the face. He's the poster child of the council right now, whether he likes it or not, because he's the pretty boy, right?
Yeah.
He's the one he's okay to look at, and he's very well spoken, very very suave, and has a lot of very
showmanship.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he loves to talk about himself usually too. So I think he's aware of some of that. Now, where I think where they've still got a bit of hubris is the way that they're kind of following the Force. I have a bit of a concern with, because while they're dedicated to it, and it's very much like Jedi, you had pointed out yesterday. We did the main show for Tempest Runner, with the almost fanaticism of these Force followers, right? And it's actually funny. I've been catching up on some of the older Star Wars flagship comics, and they're on Jedi right now. For those that I'm on, like in the mid 40s, I'm way behind. But it was just the way that they follow it is just so blind.
Yeah,
and they don't want to take any accountability. Or they don't necessarily want to look into themselves any further than they really have to, unless it's somebody else that they can go and somewhat fix. I was going to say judge, but I think it's really somewhat fix. And then we see that with Stellan and Elzar. And while there was compassion for a friend, I think, with Stellan to Elzar and wanting to do what was best for him, it was also self-serving for Stellan, because he's like, no, I really need it too. And you could say, well, no, that's him just relating and that type of thing. But I think some of it was, he was still more going for Elzar than for himself,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, for himself more than Elzar. I got that backwards.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, because he got beaten, and he's mentally beaten, and Elzar's almost an excuse for them to go do an away day, or
Right.
little team building activity or something. But so it's just I don't know. there's things that I really like about the Jedi, and there's some things that are just they're yellow flags all over the place, about what's going on, and some of it's this enthusiasm for the Force, which I think is totally fits the Jedi, but it's so over the top. And maybe I'm just got Tempest Runner in my head where it was just really, really over the top. But it just,
Well, yeah, we have we've got the question a little bit later about the Jedi. So hold those thoughts because I think we'll probably formulate something a little bit more concrete there. But as far as the Jedi goes, so here and yes, the one thing that of all the questions, I think this is the one I thought about the most. And I think the short answer right now is, are they humbled? Probably not. They're there? They're like right on the cusp of being humbled, but because they're so fanatical about the Force, because they're so enthusiastic about the Force, so long as the Force is around, I don't think they're going to be humbled. The minute
good
that
point.
Force is pulled out from underneath them, I think it's over. Like I think they're gonna change. I mean, maybe not so drastically, but I think they're gonna change their perspective on a lot of things because that is the only thing that's keeping that. I mean, they think about it. They constantly say, "Oh, the Force provides," or "We'll just trust in the Force." I mean, way more than we got. It was more than just "May the Force be with you." Like these guys they've got so many different sayings that they use that all
Right.
which all relate to like modern day like Christianity sayings for the most part. They just substitute the word God for Force. So anytime you hear, you know, the word God used in any kind of religious phrase, they've
Saber's
already
grace.
yeah,
That
they've
was
done it. They've done it in here.
that was what it really got to me. Your girl was like, "Saber's grace" or something. I was like, "Oh, are you kidding me?" Right
Yes.
now we're
No.
worshiping the saber.
But so they've just replaced the God and for the Force, and they've used the Force in a lot of other phrases there. But so they seem like as long as the Force is there, the Force is going to provide. And so there's really yes, we're going through some hard times, but all we got to do is go to Jeddah. That's where the Force is strong. That'll help us. All we got to really do is trust in the Force, and we'll get past all of this like we've always have. And the minute that's removed from them, I don't know they have anything else. And they're already starting to see it. Like Stellan is, I mean, at the very end of the Rising Storm, there's quite a few Jedi that are very scared. Like mentally, they're starting to become scarred,
Right.
and it's almost like people that put their full faith in God, and yet something horrible still happens, and they start really questioning, and they start to challenge, like, why did this doesn't make sense? I've been a devout follower of Christ or God or religion, whatever that is, and yet these horrible things happen. And at some point, when you try to resolve those feelings, you defer to, well, there's probably a bigger plan that I'm just not aware of because I can't make sense of it. I can't rationalize why something like this would horrible accident or incident happened. So therefore, it's just beyond the purview of what I'm able to comprehend. And so this is a godly comprehension. There's a bigger plan here at place. And so I think they probably will get to that at some point. But I think initially they're going to go through this. What does this all mean? Why is this happening to us? How can the Force be allowing itself, or how can anybody control the Force? And what does that mean about our religion and how we are, our devout, how we
Right.
follow it, and what does it mean to follow it? So
Yeah, and I'm with you. I think they were very close after Valo, but then of course the tables turn and they get that momentum back.
yeah,
And they had the battle at Grisel and they won at Grisel. And then they had other successes after that. And so we get this idea from them that they're on a roll, right? Things are going well. The Nihil are scattered even more so than before. They've really dwindled their numbers. They've done all these raids and things are going well. And it just they were like you said, they were there and this bad thing happened, but now they've almost got this reanimation, right? This they're re God, what's the word I'm looking for? Reinvigorated.
regulated, yeah,
Yeah, that they now are back on the right track, after what happened with Valo. And guys like T and Tune and some of these others really stick with me where they call this out. They call this type of hubris out on the Chancellor mostly, but really we see this really as applicable to the Jedi in a lot of cases as well, when it comes to just whether or not they've kind of been put in their place a little bit and recognize it. It's a self awareness thing too, right?
yeah.
But again, I think some of this, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but I think I want to make sure we talk about the Jedi Council structure and kind of the infrastructure and the organization here of the Jedi, because I think it's interesting in this era. It's interesting we haven't seen some stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, where the hell is Yoda?
I don't know. Next question. Next question.
You've been asking me this question for weeks.
I keep, yeah, I like text him like, where the heck is Yoda at? Why is he allowing this to happen? He's got whatever he's doing, knowing Yoda, at least in his own mind, whatever he's doing, he feels is way more important than even the stuff that we're seeing going on in the galaxy right now. That's the only thing I can say. Because he doesn't seem like he would be the kind to just run away, but I guess he did. But that was a little bit, things were different, right? Things were different during the time of Revenge of the Sith, where he decided to scatter and run for cover.
Scattle or Yaddle? Do you think this is setting up Yoda, though, to be kind of that heroic figure that comes in during their darkest hour?
I don't know.
Or is that too cliche for the OT folks?
So you remember when we were first talking about the High Republic and we got confirmation that Yoda was around? This was one of the things that we talked about, whether or not we would like for him. Like, how is he going to fit into the High Republic? Because we just know how dominant of a force, no pun intended, he is.
Right.
How is he going to play into this and not just win every battle? It's, again, sorry, but it's the Luke Skywalker effect. What do you do with him? It's a Superman. They call it the Superman effect. Like, what do you do with him once he's in the scene?
Yeah.
And how do you challenge him?
If you're invincible, how do you beat someone that's invincible?
Right. So I think it's fine to have him come in and save everybody at the last minute, but I don't think it's not going to be now everything's fine. Like, I think it's still going to be beyond his control. And the one thing that they have thought about is the leveler. Because it doesn't matter how strong Yoda is, if it just truly negates the force and there's no way to that maybe his force can be more powerful than the levelers or something like that, or his midichlorian count is so high that he's not as impacted. Maybe they go into that or something. That would be the only way for him to still retain some level of power to be able to save people and do the things that he needs to do. But I don't know that Yoda's going to be really that effective if it really does negate him. In fact, I don't know if we have got a question in here about the leveler itself, but
well, I think it was the leveler. So many questions.
Yeah. Well, and is that in here?
Yeah, it's the one after Tiger.
Oh, it's the one after this one.
Yeah, we can jump right into leveler if you'd like, because I think it's relevant here.
Okay. Well, so the questions about, so that hopefully that answers Yoda's thing. I don't really know right now. I have a feeling it's going to be something big because it just feels very uncharacteristic of him to not even be mentioned at all or not having any contact with the council right now that we know of, or anybody else that's going on. And yet they're in the midst of these pretty grand battles and some pretty significant things are happening. So
I think it has to be something grand, because otherwise it really cheapens the mystique of Yoda. And I don't think any of the writers want to diminish Yoda's importance. And so I agree with you. I think this is something that's going to be doesn't tip everything, but it's going to be a major contribution to get things back on the right track, but it doesn't necessarily fix anything.
Yeah. I mean, if he's on a beach, some like Alderaanian beach sipping on a Mai Tai, then we got some pretty big problems.
Hey, maybe he's out there with Biggs and Porkins.
Right, with their swimming trunks. Well, they're not alive yet, but yeah, that would be a cool visual. Maybe he is doing something like that.
Maybe they learned it from Yoda.
Yeah, exactly. Passed down.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah, I can.
That's an image. Do you think he wears orange Speedos too?
Maybe.
Clashes against his green skin.
We need to look up, go ahead and do a Google search on Yoda beachwear.
No, because there's some things you cannot unsee.
Yeah, that'll be one of them.
All right, the leveler. Give us your take on the leveler and where we're at with this thing.
The one thing I don't understand that I'll kind of preface this and caveat with is we don't know the extent of its power. I think we speculated during the Rising Storm that maybe having been encased in ice or whatever it was, its power, I should say, was diminished in some way, and it's starting to grow, right? The area of effect is starting to grow. He's starting to become more and more powerful. We don't know a lot of things about it. Like, how does it turn something to dust, right? How did it impact Loden, but not Bell? Bell was just fine outside of having the madness stuff that he had going on. Somehow it induced visions for Marchion Ro, right? He was starting to hallucinate there at the very end. So was Elzar Mann, Bell Zettifar.
Marchion was?
Well, he was starting to see the visions more. Like he had all those visions of his father, like his father talking. Like it felt like he was going mad. Maybe that's not related anyway, but
yeah, I was thinking about Udi. Sorry, about Udi.
Oh, Udi Dis, yeah. Well, and Udi Dis had as well. He had similar things. So in all those cases, with the exception of Ro, they're all force sensitive. Maybe Marchion Ro is force sensitive. I really doubt that though. That would be really
Yeah.
ironic. But so the point is, we don't know if he's able to influence more than just force sensitives, or it's able to impact more than just force sensitive. But at its core, the leveler itself really, I don't know who's going. Like the Jedi at that point are negated. Like this, here's something to think about. If you took away the force from a Jedi, do you think they would still be as good as? Would they be good combatants still? Because they remember now they're not going to have a lightsaber, right? Because they've already taken care of that. So you're taking away the lightsabers, you're taking away the force from them. So what do they have left? How do they fight back? Um,
Right. Yeah. I think some of them have true skill. I mean, and you have folks like Lorna D who can hold their own. So I
yeah,
think there's some, but I think you're absolutely right. There are some who would be a scholar still, but not necessarily have any kind of force enhanced abilities. And I agree with you. A lot of them are probably pretty normal.
I think a lot of them are going to be normal, like because the whole point, and this is headcanon, so I'm not saying I'm right or wrong here, but for me, the whole point of fighting with a lightsaber is being able to tap in the force and do things like you learn how to attack and defend and rely on the force for those attacks and for those defenses. So you can't in my mind you can't just grab a stick and still be able to do all the things you would do with a with that because it's not a lightsaber. Even everything from the weight, and this is again, this is not canon, this is legends, but in legends we always knew the lightsabers, the blade itself had no weight whatsoever. All the
Right.
weight was down in the handle, and so that's why it was so awkward for non-force users to use a lightsaber because they couldn't feel where it was, and so it was dangerous. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I'd lop things off.
Yeah, they would just unintentionally lop things off because they had no kind of, they couldn't
Concept.
really
Yeah.
feel it. They couldn't, yeah, spatially they couldn't see it, but the force allowed them to do that. So if you take that into account, now you put a full size weapon in their hand. They've never experienced wielding something that has more weight. Now, could they adjust pretty quickly? Sure, but I don't think that some of their stances, if they still do those, well, they do because it's canonized. They just don't have as many as they used to. But the different styles and stances that they have, those are again predicated upon the force, and they rely on the force for them to happen. So you're going to pull that away from them. They're going to have to go back to whatever basic level training they had, from kids playing with rocks and sticks, or they're going to have to learn it up. So the point of that is it is going to be a very humbling experience for them to, again, not only not have the force, which is huge already, but then you take away the lightsabers themselves and they're nothing at that point. Like I have a hard time understanding like who is going to step up. And this is what I was trying to get at. Who is going to step up and save the galaxy at this point if the Jedi aren't around or can't be effective or not around? They may still be leading tactically and they've got, lore and all these skills that can't be taken from them, but somebody has to step up. And is it going to be the Defense Coalition? Is it going to be the Mandalorians who don't rely on lightsabers and have tons and tons of, melee weapons and ballistic weapons? They rely on ballistic more than they do laser bolts and stuff like that.
But really, do the Mandalorians care? As
I don't
long as
know.
they're not, as long as they're not in the way.
Yeah. I mean, they've got their own battles, right? Yeah, exactly. They may not, but who is it? I don't know who's going to.
That would be interesting though to have Mandalorians introduced into this timeline.
They've only mentioned them once. It was in
Right.
Light of the Jedi.
Yeah.
But
Well, they did in Tempest Runner too, right? With the Beskar armor that D was wearing.
oh well, yeah, there was a reference. Yeah, you're right. There was a
Mhm.
reference in there of him. But I think the only thing we know is that they were dealing with battle. They were dealing with stuff on their planet, but they hadn't really had a big war lately, or something to that. I'm paraphrasing what was said in Light of the Jedi,
Right.
but it didn't sound like they were in a massive war as like they normally would be. They were kind of in a downtime.
Just biding their time. Yeah. And again, we don't know the weakness of the leveler yet either. There's always got to be a weakness, right? We know that the good guys are going to prevail in some way, maybe not totally or in a way that feels satisfying to everyone or is really satisfying to the Jedi or the Republic because presumably they're going to take a ton of losses from this.
Mm-hmm.
But there's going to be something that they can exploit. And I guess the thought I have or the question I have for really everybody, not just you or me, is if it's not the Jedi that saved the day, is that okay? And I'm not meaning to rhyme,
No,
but I mean, dude,
yeah.
will fans now we're kind of stepping out of this, right? Step out of this just a little bit. As fans, if it's the Jedi having to be saved, is that okay? Is that something? If it's a major save, and T and Tune really has it right. And they come up with, an actual defense force, not just a coalition, but an actual defense force, you know, and they save the day. Is that all right? And how does that impact the Jedi, not only in the story, but how do we view them as fans, and whether or not that diminishes our perspective of them, or does it just humanize them for us a bit?
Yeah, I think I would be okay with it. I'm probably not normal. I'm pretty sure I'm
Well,
not.
there's no question about that one.
Yeah.
I
So
say that lovingly, of course.
no, I appreciate that. Yeah, I would be okay with it. I think it does speak more to the humanity of it, and not just humans, but this, whatever the races, all the races. Um, but beyond them, I don't know. That's a really tough question to answer. Like, who's going to step in and do that? I think the Jedi have to have a role in it. I
Yeah, I
don't,
agree. Yeah.
right? Otherwise, that does feel like, okay, then what's the point of the Jedi when this thing's out there? I also think that, and I know that we've probably said this millions of times already, but because of the events of what we're seeing now, and certainly through Wave Two and Phase Two and Phase Three, when we get to the point of the Jedi, I think that's why they're so adamant about not being soldiers, right? We can only defend, what is it? Defend you. We can't win a war for you, kind of thing.
Right.
That stance is a line that was drawn in the sand hundreds of years ago, maybe not that far back, but years ago, because of the outcome of what's happening here, or because of the events that we're starting to see here. So if they do step in, I think their forces get diminished, or things get really muddled. I think alliances are going to be drawn. Something's going to start kind of tearing at the seams for the Jedi, because some are probably going to feel like they need to be a part of this, and you know, and some feel like they don't need to be and they can't be, and those that do, there's some really bad ramifications of that. All that's got to
Mhm.
play into it, so that when we get to the prequel trilogy, they're like, no, we are not soldiers. We've already seen what happens when we're soldiers, and I think that's what we're getting now. This is a story of what it was like to be a soldier during this time, and why they're so adamantly against it. When we get to the prequel trilogy.
Yeah, I think characters like Elzar are really going to demonstrate that, or have demonstrated already for us to. One more question I have about the Leveler, well, really about the Jedi and the Leveler. If a Jedi retreats from the Force, kind of like what Bell was doing, like we've seen Luke do, like we've seen in Legends, do you think the Leveler still has the same type of power to attack that Force user if they're not using the Force, or they've kind of withdrawn into themselves and kind of cut themselves off from it? Do you think that has any bearing on the leveler's effectiveness?
I would like to say that it doesn't, because that would be a really cool way for them to figure out how to go up against the leveler, you know, and not lose the force. The other, what we don't know is how long. Like, does it level the force temporarily? Right now, it feels like it's temporary,
Well, Loden
or
wasn't
is
very
it?
temporary.
Oh, yeah, Loden's not temporary, but if it's able to negate the force in that way, what if it's a permanent thing? I mean, could you have a number of Jedi after this is all settled, the dust is settled? They're just, no pun intended. They're all like just regular people, and that would be something to kind of know. But to go back to your question, I think it would be a clever way for them to introduce a way for the Jedi to figure out, because it's now what, two Jedi that have done this. There was
Yeah.
Bell; he had suppressed it, and
I think
not,
they all do it in some way. I can't remember.
there was somebody else that, maybe not. Maybe it was just Bell, and it happened to do. I'll have to think on. I'll sleep on it, or
Yeah.
meditate on this. But there was two that I thought
At a shrine?
at a shrine that did it in this era, and maybe if we start seeing that pattern, it's a way to kind of signal that this is where they're going to figure out. But that would be a cool way for them to, like, even as they're fighting, being able to sense that it's about to happen, suppress the force, and then once it's calmed down, reinvigorate the force and call upon it again whenever they
Right.
would. That'd be a really cool tactic. But
Because we saw those tactics in use in Legends, and we know they do borrow from Legends, and they bring some of this forward, and maybe with a new spin on it usually. But we know that was an instrumental part of that storyline, especially I think with the Exile days, or something like that. The after the it was really prominent in New Jedi Order, of course, but it became more prevalent in a couple of others after that. But it just came to mind that it was an interesting way to counterbalance a beast that takes away your ability. If you take it away from the beast, does it protect you from the beast? Now,
no,
the
I don't
beast
see it.
seems like it's still pretty formidable. It sounds pretty nasty.
Right.
but it would be an interesting concept if they were able to just basically take away the source of its food, effectively, right?
Yep.
I'm not chum. You're kind of telling it you're not chum effectively.
So I have one thing for you, just quickly, because
No.
we're coming up on time. All right, next question.
42.
42. That's the answer to everything. So one of the comics that was released or announced was the 4th issue of Trail of Shadows,
Yeah.
which is the Daniel Jose Older series, right? The crime noir detective story that's going on. Did you see the cover for that?
Yes.
Okay, I'm
Go
gonna
ahead.
throw it up on the screen.
Yeah.
I want you to look at what's in the background here, and I want you to tell me if you think that is potentially the leveler back there.
I thought about that too. And that's about the only, well, that would be awesome. I mean, it fits, right? The Trail of Shadows. Whether we don't know anything about this storyline, we don't know what they're really hunting, do we? Or what they're not
So
hunting, but what they're, because it was also something like Monster of Temple Peak or something, things like that also started giving me ideas of, does Ty York kind of come across something? But yeah, this one, the art was very, very enticing, but I do not trust comic book covers.
no, you're
Should,
right.
no
No
one
one
should
ever.
ever trust a comic book cover because they all lie to you. All of them lie to you, folks. I'm sorry. They're beautiful. I love them. They collect a lot of dust and collect value sometimes, but they lie.
Yeah, they do lie.
They're
They're
like the
they're
Sith.
they're made to
Just a bunch of
sell.
liars.
They're made to sell issues, and that's what they go after.
It bothers me so much, but I love it too.
Yeah, but so when this came out, I'm like, holy bananas, that looks like the leveler. The only problem with this speculation of this theory is, if I'm not, and I may be wrong, I hope I am, but if I remember correctly, when they were talking about Trail of Shadows, the detectives, and the names are escaping me right now because I still know them very well, but
Right.
they were researching something that had happened on Starlight Beacon, not at Valo. So I don't know if at some point, by the time they get to issue 4, they've somehow traced it back to this thing. Somehow the leveler is involved in that. I don't know.
Things take weird turns sometimes.
Yep. That would be the only way, but it is an interesting creature that's back there.
And you know what clued or that made me think that wasn't as much the beast behind it, but if you look at the yellow aura around the character in the front, on the right side below his ear, it's almost got like that side almost seems like it's being pulled from him a little bit. Now I know that's probably not what it is. It's just the way
The
I don't,
coloring.
yeah, it's not as tight around the figure, but it just gave it this appearance, like the way that it emanates just a little bit towards the mouth. I was like, okay,
Mm.
that would be kind of cool if you actually got to visually
Yeah.
see this
Suck the
happen.
life force right out of him.
Yes, I mean, and maybe they explain it. This is the hard part to understand about the comics because the comics are almost behind now, right, of where we're at. We're still getting through the High Republic, the main flagship, and some of these things have already happened, so they're getting a little bit disjointed here, or at least I'm having a hard time keeping it all straight. Maybe that's more to the point.
Yeah, I was trying to
But
zoom in here on that. This is the part
yeah,
here that I'm circling. Where you
right.
can
And
kind of
even
see
if
it
if you go up a little bit, it's just a little more.
up here
It's
as well.
yeah, and maybe it's just a sloppy Photoshop job. I don't know, but it's
Or a sloppy coloring job.
yeah, or maybe it means something. Like, God, I feel like Mike Rondo now, but
Yep.
well, no, I'm not digging. I'm not dogging on it, but yeah, I like it though. And is that so if that's a leveler, is that what you anticipated it looking like? Does that fit your mental model as to what that seems big for me? Now, granted, things are to scale, but if it was that large, and so basically larger than a adult human male that was probably a little over 6 foot, something like that, it's still quite large, like a giant werewolf, effectively.
If it's over, like I envision this thing being like 9, 10 feet tall. Like it wasn't small,
Hmm.
and I felt like it was kind of hulking, like an Umber Hulk kind of looking creature, if you're familiar with those. But the only sense of scale that we have was Elzar Mann's his depiction, right? When he was seeing it running, it was running off on all fours. It looked like a huge beast, is what he said, and I'm paraphrasing there. So I got the
Right.
sense that it was pretty large. Was it this big? I don't know. That'd be really great if it was. If this is the scale, that's humongous. And so even if the Jedi, were there and had other weapons and didn't have the Force, this thing is going to be hard to take down. That's why I said it's got to be somebody else that steps in, some kind of military force, like the Mandos or the Republic Defense Coalition, or they've got to figure out a way to take this thing down just with natural weapons, ballistic weapons, melee weapons of some sort, because the Force isn't going to work and laser bolts aren't going to work. So what do you do?
But it still seems like some mystical thing to capture it still has to happen, right? I mean, how did they capture this thing in ice in the first place?
No idea.
Yeah, a lot of questions. So, like I said, so many questions.
So many questions.
Ooh.
Yeah, I don't know.
We still got a handful to go here. We're at an hour. So, what do you think about Ty York? Do you think she's sticking around? Do you think it sounds like she's sticking around?
I think she is, and I think the latest issue of Monster of Temple Peak came out last night,
Mm-hmm.
and I got through it, and it was actually really good. Not as action packed as the first one, but way more insight into her background, way more insight into the Jedi and the Force and other Force users. Oh my goodness, we're gonna have to break that down because there's so many things, and there's not really other than just mentioning the different names that Kevin Scott keeps coming up with of all these Force users and Force followers. And there's a lot here, more than we have in by the time we get to the original trilogy, much less than much more than we have in the prequel trilogy. But what was I saying?
I don't know. All the Jedi. Are
Yeah,
you all the Jedi? Yeah.
I am all
right.
the Jedi.
All the names he keeps pulling out and just different variations of this guy is on his game, man.
Oh,
This guy
this is
knows
living
it.
his best life. Like I said, this is if you look at his background, he's been a fan of Star Wars ever since since the original Star Wars. But then he was a huge comic book collector of the original Marvel Star Wars comic. So when you read those comics, you get that's his feel for the comics is very similar to that, and he loves this whole Monster of the Week, which is why has Ty York as a monster hunter. And
Yeah. Well, he's a huge horror movie fan.
well, yeah, he writes it, eats it, breathes it,
Yeah.
to no
Watches
end.
it all like every week. I think he subjects his daughter to one every week or something like that.
Yep, this guy's not right in the head, but
But he's fantastic.
to our benefit, he's not.
Right.
So where I was going with that with Ty York though is I have a feeling she's going to. I don't know that she'll. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of torn right now because I feel like
you're kind of leading. Yeah, you're leading them on here. Is she going to go back to the order or not?
yeah, that's the question, right? Is she going to go back? Part of me says yes. Part of me says no. But her and Man leaves the order and joins her. I can see that more than her joining the order again. I think they're going to both vie for. I think they're going to vie for the other to go with them. Like Man's already said, hey, I think he said it in the Rising Storm. He was mentioning, hey, you used to be part of the order, and he's kind of playing to that you still have it in you kind of thing. At the same time, I think she's going to push back and be like, no, I left that for a reason. Actually, now, not to spoil, well, I shouldn't spoil anything because they kind of hint at what happened in this most recent issue without really saying it.
I think we're going to get a good chunk of that backstory here in the next couple of issues. Though.
Yes, I think so too. Because they built it in the first one. They gave us something a little bit more substantial in the second one, but close your ears, go on mute for like 5 seconds, and I'll just get it out real quick. She may have been kicked out of the Jedi Order, is what was in this most recent issue. But I don't think she's gonna be trying to say, look, come over here. You're like this experimental dude. You see the Force in different ways. You're exactly what a way seeker is, right? You shouldn't be following the order because that's not really set up for you. There's too many laws, too many regulations, all that. You really just need to trust in the Force and follow the Force and become a way seeker like me and everybody else that are currently running around as these.
Is she really a way seeker? Because that's what Orla Jareni is, right?
Yeah,
officially. Because I think Ty York that's more what she's closely aligned with, though. I absolutely agree. Why she wasn't permitted to or encouraged to be a way seeker, we need to figure out that detail because I think I'm like, why is she not there and just given more free reign on this stuff? Or
yeah, I'm using it as a general term. You're right. She has not said I am a way seeker. And in fact, if you go back to the High Republic video, there's a video they did of all of the way seekers. She was never showed in any of those. They showed Orla Jareni, but they haven't and they showed a couple of other ones in there, which I think are going to come out at some point. I think we're going to see some more of those because there was a lot of them, and they didn't just create this art for no reason. But she was not you would have thought she would have been like front and center, and she was not. They ended with Orla at the very end of that video.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if Ty makes a comment about way seekers though when she's doing her dice. Maybe I'm imagining this, but I thought she had at least made a reference to it. But maybe not.
She may.
I'd have to go back and try to find that if that exists or not. But I just thought she aligns really closely with what they do.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
that she's just right. But in that comic book, like I said, there are a number of other people here crazy, and I won't spoil the details, but they mention a Force user that has abilities that the Jedi do not. So think about that. So you know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Like there's other dimensions of the Force that they're exploring here with some of these characters, or some of these other factions or religions or whatever you want. I mean, it's no different
right.
than maybe the witches and everything else. I mean, they do things that the Jedi don't. But the point of all that is, as far as Ty York goes, I think it's still too early to determine. But my gut tells me whatever she's going to do is going to be with Elzar Mann. I think they're going to be tied at the hip for a very long time. And where it goes from there, I don't know. But they seem to be right for each
It's almost
other.
like a great buddy cop drama now
Yeah,
with
yeah,
those
you could
two.
put exactly.
They should be the buddy cop drama because going on these Trail of Shadows missions. That would be interesting.
All right, just a couple of questions. I got one for you. Mari Santeca said
Ooh,
that
yeah.
Loden saved her as well. What do you think this means?
She says that he saved her, basically bringing her back from the brink. Basically, she was lost, and his focus and his energy helped bring her back into focus. But she seemed, and I guess if we go back to Light of the Jedi, her comments when she was talking with Ro seemed very disjointed and very. They made sense, but they didn't have a lot of cohesion. I think we cocked it. We kind of chalked that up to the cocktail that she was on and whatever else they were doing to keep her, in her, well, alive, but
Hmm.
also within her
Yeah,
tube there.
lucid.
Yeah. But I just thought it was so interesting because later on, and again, this is another spoiler, folks. If you haven't read Out of the Shadows, she dies not long after the events of the Rising Storm.
Hmm.
And so it was like, okay, and Mars Attack is just so confusing me because then she gives, Vernestra, the last path basically, to an unknown place or a place that hasn't been used and gone to in forever, but with no explanation to it. It confuses me if that was the one thing Mari Santeca was brought back to do, but did Mari know that? And I don't think we're ever going to get answers for any of this stuff either. The only ones who would know would be Loden. Well, he's not around. And we kind of already got as much of that story or Venestra, but Venestra's just as confused as everybody or as, we are with what she's given and why.
Yeah, I mean, she had very little interaction with her.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe Chansey, Silvestri, maybe she has something else that she could garner from that, but it doesn't sound like they were real chatty either. So again, I'm frustrated because I wanted to know more about Mari Santeca and what I kind of want to know more about the clan conflicts between the Santecas and the what's the other one?
Um,
Uh,
the
not the
Graffs.
Grafts.
No?
Yeah, is it? Are they? Yeah, I guess they're the competing family. Yeah, the
Yeah, the
Grafts and
Graffs of
the
the Santecas are against each other, competing against each other.
yeah. So I kind of want to know more about that one in the past, but yeah, I'm a little I'm a little sad. I guess I'm not disappointed. I'm sad that Mari Santeca's story is over, and I don't know if we're going to get really anything about her for probably for a very long time, if ever.
Yeah, I think Roe's gonna be the last link there.
Yeah,
Whether
yeah, that's a good point.
he's got some diary or he's, monologuing at some point talking about it. We'll probably maybe get some, or it's a flashback. I mean, that's an easy way to do it. Give
Well,
us a
maybe Eye of the
flashback.
Storm, and maybe Eye of the Storm will shed a little bit of light on that too.
Yeah, good
I guess
job.
that's an opportunity there.
So I think for Mari Santeca, she's without any doubt in my mind at this point, she's force sensitive. Always kind of I was on the fence, I think, for a while there until the Rising Storm, and she starts talking to Loden. How she's got to be connected to the Force to be able to talk to somebody like that.
Right.
Interesting that he was never really able to sense that she was force sensitive. Like he didn't even know who he was talking to. He thought it was just some voice, and at one point, I think he thought he was just going crazy, given what he'd
Yeah.
been through the last year, being tortured like that. But I think that she is force sensitive now, and so if she is force sensitive, maybe she's had visions, or she had a vision of what. Maybe she found a way to see where she really was, like to be able to see the truth of where she's been this entire time and know that Markion Rowe's been doing this. And so for her, it was a matter of, I'm conscious again. Thank you for bringing that out, bringing it to me. I know exactly what's going on. I'm not going to be manipulated, and I know where my destiny lies. And she dies. And that was the reason why he said that, or she said that she had saved him, maybe just given her sanity back at its simplest form. But I'm with you. Like, she was a character that I really wish we would have gotten more on. I thought they were going to do more with her because it's so fascinating. Like, we've never
Mhm.
had or seen anything like this before.
And then the things that she was telling Loden, right? That, you need him, he needs you. You guys are basically, when he's talking about Bell, effectively that they're meant to be together, that they need each other. And then Loden, again, I don't. It was just it made it just it confused me so much because then Loden
Loden dies.
dies,
Yeah.
and that bond is now completely shat. I mean, Bell is shattered at this point.
Is it though?
Oh boy, you've been reading spoilers again, haven't you?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't. But I've been thinking. So you brought this up a couple weeks ago, and it really
Yeah.
stuck with me because I was like, man, you're right. I don't. That does suck because now it's like he died for nothing. Like, what did he die for? And why would
Right.
Mari Santeca be so? You need this needs to happen. And then I started thinking, well, maybe this was just more of a. I don't want to call it exactly the same kind of moment, but maybe this was the moment where Obi-Wan had a vision and or knew that if he gave himself up, he would be more strong. He'd be stronger in the Force because he was going to be able to help Luke and teach him and kind of be that guiding light for him. I don't know. Maybe we're going to get a Force Ghost from Loden Greatstorm, and Loden's going to be the one that's kind of coaching Bell from the beyond. Maybe not to the extent of. I mean, I don't think he's going to show up, right? Because we know from like Yoda and from Qui Gon Jinn and the what do you call them? The Wills.
Guardian. Yep. Yeah, the
What are
Wills.
they, yeah, I'm trying to think of those. Were the ladies though? Were they called the Wills? At one point they were. I don't know where they're from the Clone Wars. It was like the last season or before they went to.
Oh, oh gosh.
Anyways, those
Yeah.
ladies with the mat, they look like they got masks on. Those, whatever those ladies were, they were the ones that taught Yoda the ability to live on as a Force Ghost, right? But it's not to say that somebody around this time didn't know, and maybe Mari Santeca knew or saw that she needed to die, and those two needed to become together because Bell needed to go through that loss so that Loden would be able to return to him, and later down the road come back and help him a la all the Jedi being, I'm all the Jedi kind of things. I don't
Right.
I'm
But what
curious. I'm
if?
just like speculating now.
Yeah, sure. No, I like it. So what if the leveler basically sucks your soul out of you? What if you don't return to the cosmic force and
Ooh,
you're
what if
just
you're with a leveler? What if he's like a collector of souls?
well, that's dark.
So then could Loden come back?
Oh, don't yeah, don't. Ooh. Mm. I'd have to think about that one.
There's gonna be a lot of souls collected here soon.
You
Okay.
poor unfortunate souls.
All right, let's get out of here because it's already an hour and 15
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah, we got a couple left here real quick. We talked a lot about the Jedi already.
Yeah.
And so just to kind of overarch that, do you think they're as put together as they think they are? Do you think they're really this
Mm,
really great cohesive unit that's supporting one another and being the best that they can actually be? That's a loaded question, but generally speaking.
I think they're too far to the light. Like they don't have enough balance. I think they're almost like I wouldn't say like they're the opposite, the 100%, they're the complete opposite of the Sith more than the Jedi were even during the prequel era. You know what I mean? Like if that makes any sense.
Right.
They're so good and they're so far to the light side that it creates problems and they don't realize it because of the Force and the hubris that they have and all the gifts that they have I think a lot of times they don't see it, and that's what's burning at Marchion Row. I think that's ultimately what's going to get exposed for all the reasons we've already spoken about. So I don't think they are as well put together as they think they are. To me, it feels like the High Republic era is telling us once again that the best place to be is where Yoda or where Luke Skywalker is. Somewhere in the middle, somewhere around the middle, not being too strong or leaning too far one way and not enough the other way. I think you really do have to be kind of in the middle in that balanced area, or like the Bendu or whoever
Yeah.
else you want to throw in there, the father.
Yeah, and I guess I was originally going to talk about the Jedi Council, and I think we'll kind of skip that. Generally, it was more of a thought around. We never see them as a council, or I don't think we've barely seen them once, and it ended up being an argument between Elzar and Ever Chris. And so I don't know that we've really seen a lot of cohesion in that respect.
Yeah, I think
So
we saw them in Light of the Jedi when they were coming together and they had to decide on whether or not they were going to fight the Drengir. You remember that? They brought them all in.
Yeah.
They were kind of going back and forth, and it was what's her name? The one that died. The one that died that was
Oh,
going to be on Charlie
Jorah Molly.
Jorah Molly, yeah. She was the one that finally had the kind of casting vote, if you will, saying, we need to do what's good because that's what we do, right? And I'm paraphrasing that immortal line, which I really love. Now I'm drawing a blank on how it goes, but we saw them there. We saw them. They were briefly mentioned in the comic. No, no, they weren't. It was Vader and Yoda talking about stuff. It wasn't really a council kind of meeting. But your point's well taken. Like they have been absent this entire time, and we don't know what's going on. Like they were. If you go look at the video of all of the Jedi Council members, we don't even know half those people. They've never even been mentioned in the book. So I think their time is coming. But to your point, like where the hell are they? They shouldn't they be the ones that are doing this? It feels like it's the Elzar Mans and the Selengios and the although Geos is on the council, but the Avar Chris's and the Keeves and the Verns, and these are the ones out there making decisions and not leaning on the council's guidance. So what are they doing?
Right. You brought up Keith Trennis to remind me of folks, if you haven't watched it yet, go watch the High Republic show and go look at Kevin Scott's response to whether or not Keith Trennis is Master Trennis. That's referenced in Dooku Jedi Lost that Albert brought up a couple weeks ago.
Elusive.
Yeah. Somewhere else. All right. And then, so we'll wrap it up with kind of our final one here. What's the fallout for Lena So after the Republic Fair debacle on pretty much every level except the Togrutas? The Togruta, their empire or whatever it is, that seems to be the one shining achievement with all of this. But what's the fallout for the rest of the galaxy with Lena So? Do you think this really tarnishes their perspective on her, or does it diminish her ability to do her great works? Or do you think that she's going to come out of this even stronger than before because that's just kind of who she is and she's going to weather the storm? No pun intended.
No, I think there was but going back to Light of the Jedi, there was an early reference. They kind of foreshadowed that somebody was going to kind of, supplant her, right? At some point, they were going to get her out of power, and they were going to be. So I don't think they've given up on that thread. I think they've just been building the case for somebody to step forward and say, "I vote no confidence in Lena So because of look at all these things that have happened." And I think the reality is, it's going to be hard for anybody to argue in her favor to say that, no, this has all been fine. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? They've had some disaster after disaster. I think it's going to be enough. And there may be something else that helps kind of sway politically the opinions and all that. I'm not saying that's going to be absent here and it's just going to be a pure vote. There's probably some kind of corruption that's happened or whatever, but I think it's going to be enough for them to get her out of power. And I really question where she goes at this point, whether she joins as an advisor to the Jedi Council or some other kind of role, whatever. But I think we're going to get a new person in power, and I think we're going to see like shades of, we're going to get a corrupt Senate. I think at some point, maybe not like to the extent of like Palpatine and what he was doing, but certainly people that are looking out for themselves more than the galaxy. And I think that's going to create even more problems for the Jedi and just the galaxy at large going forward with whatever comes forward at that point.
That would be unfortunate though, because I think Lena So has really done some truly tremendous things for the Republic, and she's the embodiment of what the Republic is trying to be. And to me, she's really that spirit for what the Republic wants to be. And people really do buy into this theory that they are all the Republic. And I get very concerned this is a huge deal, right? The Valo and the way I'm sure there's some dissension about how the hyperspace lanes after the great disaster were handled, and the constriction of food and supplies getting to, the mid and outer rims and all of that. I think overall though, she's still very well respected and is one of these people who is still trying to make the galaxy I don't want to call it homogenous, but at least a very coexisting body that embraces all of their differences and celebrates their differences, right? And they can do all of this. They can do all this together if they just do it together. It would be really unfortunate though if that went away, because it's very rare you have true visionaries, right? The people who really press you to think differently and to really stretch beyond, and then hold you accountable to being able to achieve it and to be able to accomplish it. I mean, and think about George Lucas in particular, right? You
Mhm.
get someone like with Star Wars, none of this stuff, whether it's the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy, they had to invent a lot of this stuff. It was just their creativity and their imagination about what was possible and a need that they thought was needed to be filled, but also interests in what they thought was, something that people would enjoy. And I think while the Republic Fair was definitely flawed in the lack of security, I think lack of giving it really serious thought as to that, or being a bit not having that humility with the Nihil and thinking that they were, annihilated, if you will, and no longer a threat. I think was just a major blunder, and she definitely will take that hit. I think the Jedi will too, if they haven't already.
Yeah.
But the idea behind it though was still fantastic. The
Yeah.
timing was really unfortunate, right?
Yeah,
And this is
exactly.
and this is where Tea and Tune has a lot of uh, power and empowerment to it. Is that he can say all day that this was supposed to be a testament to it, but the timing was just completely awful. And we told her it was awful, and it was awful, and it turned out to be this tragic, like unimaginable loss of life, and it spawned some other things too. And so but I think where she can save some of that grace though is that out of the ashes something is rebirth, right? That the
Mhm.
phoenix rises, and out of that we are now potentially a stronger republic because now we have brought other allies in, and not only are they very powerful, but they have resources, and they seem to want to expand a bit beyond their borders, at least their influence. Maybe not they're not expanding, but a bit of the influence.
Yeah.
So I really hope you're wrong, but I have a feeling you're probably not wrong because that's the way these things roll. And I think this next set of chapters for her in particular, I think you're going to be critical. Like, what does she go back to do? What is her next move? What is her next great work? Is it more Starlight Beacons? Are those now on hold? Has the Senate lost confidence? Are they taking away funding? Is it an uphill battle now? Or is she still have enough support that she's able to push these initiatives through? Even if they're a bit more difficult, she still has the ability to accomplish that.
I think she stays I think she stays in power until the end of wave 1, like with or what sorry, in the end of phase 2. So this next
Okay.
set of books, I think it ends with the Fallen Star, or the Fallen Star is going to end with, if not this exact thing happening, at least setting up that we know it's going to happen, and that's her being removed from power. And I think if what we are speculating holds true, and the fallen star is a metaphor for a couple things, but more importantly, it's the metaphor for Starlight Beacon literally falling from the sky. That is literally her last great work, right? It is falling. I mean, there's a lot of symbolism there of it just coming down and crashing and being destroyed or taken out. I mean, that is her last thing that she has. And so at that point,
You still have the images up from the comics, right?
yeah.
It has the
Um,
cover of the book in there too. So for the folks who are watching the video, you can actually see in the
what,
in the background.
let me go up here.
Great radio, folks. We know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
So here we go. Fallen Star. You get this. You have Bell, and you have a few Jedi's here on the cover, but they look like they're on Starlight Beacon. It looks like that's what it is, but it's got cracks in the glass. There's flames all around it.
Yep. Smoke.
So yeah, and yeah, you got Stellan there, and Burry and Orla Jareni, and uh, I'm driving
Adira.
Nemesis. Oh, and Deer Stokes, right?
Yep.
So, but again, you're missing a couple of key characters there.
Yeah. There's no
No Elzar.
no Elzar, no Avar Chris. Where the heck are they? Which I keep speculating that the Fallen Star is also going to be Avar Chris, but
Yeah,
it
I don't
could
think it's
be
going to be. I don't think it's going to be just one.
right.
It's usually these things come in threes. But
To go back to saying, yeah, that's. I mean, if this thing does fall, whether it falls literally from the sky or is just destroyed, the symbolism of being that last great thing that she did is now gone, and I don't think she recovers from that. I think that's when someone's going to step in and say, "This is enough's enough." She's going about. I mean, her motives are great, her intentions are great, but she's obviously going about this horribly wrong because we're not any better now than we were 3-4 years now, or how much of a time jump we get when we get to the Fallen Star.
let's say Starlight goes down or is blown out of the space. If it's just destroyed, and Lena So's on it and she dies. Do you think that sends the Republic into chaos, or do you think the Republic has enough cohesion to where they would be able to survive that? Or again, we don't really know who that next person in leadership is. We know there's some players kind of in the mix, but we don't really have a whole lot about them. But if she were to die, not get thrown out, but actually die, does the Republic go into chaos, or does that really fracture things? Because she really is the glue for a lot of this stuff, whether they want to admit it or not.
Yeah, I think it does. I absolutely do. I do think it does. I mean, you look at history and you look at when presidents, high level political figures are assassinated or killed. It does. I mean, it can set them back enough to temporarily disrupt the flow of the economy gets impacted, social work gets impacted. I mean, at every level, something does get impacted. And when you're talking about like this, you're talking about at this level with somebody with this much power, it's going to have that immediate impact. But then you've got all these other people that are suddenly going to be vying for power, and you're going to have those struggles and those conflicts. And I think there's just ripple effects that happen as a result of that. And eventually, I think it does settle down. It's going to have to. But yeah, that would be a huge, huge loss. And it would be really interesting to see what that looks like, because we have no idea outside of what we saw from the prequel trilogy of how at least canonically, we don't know how this really works and what the secession plan is and who comes into power and all that stuff. But
Right.
all of that would be really interesting. As much as I'm not a really big political guy, it seems very relevant during this period, because that, like to your point, she is the glue, in my opinion. She's got everybody, pulled together right now. And if you remove that, she's kind of like that keystone. What's going to happen? It's all going to just kind of come crumbling down, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the Death Watch. Who's actually going to, kick it here, or be taken from us, that actually has someone that's been built up and has a lot of meaning, and has a lot of meaning to all of the people around them, the characters around them. And Lena So is really towards the top of that list, I think, when you think about all the ways that all of these different groups connect to her and what she's done. So I think it would be a really interesting one if she were to be the one, or one of the, and of course we almost lost her this time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe here in a few books, maybe she's not so lucky. And then what is it that takes her out? Like, who's going to attack Starlight right now? There's a lot of things that have to happen for that type of thing to go down.
Yep.
We know that
We've got a lot of books coming out. So.
Oh, do we? Oh, I didn't notice. It seems like there's a new one released every 5 days.
Yeah.
I was relieved, though, on the High Republic show, that they were readily admitting that, kind of what we talked about this week, that some of these books have been out for only like a week or two, but they feel like they've been out for like 6 months because so many other things have happened. And of course, they're working on books well into the future that won't be released for another 6 to 8 months or more.
Cavan's he's on a 1-year plan. He doesn't like to be any less than 1 year out. So you think that blows my mind. And if I ever get a chance to ask him, I want to ask him what that's like, to be able to have a book release, and then we're all just can't stop talking about it, posting stuff all day long. And does that? I mean, it's been a year.
And how much do his coworkers hate him?
Right.
Right. Because Charles Soule talked about it a little bit, and I think Kevin Scott did, how the pandemic affected. We're getting off basis here, but there's been a lot of interest. If you're not following Charles Soule and Kevin Scott on Twitter, they talk a lot.
Yeah,
and
they do.
Not a lot, and they retweet, or Kevin Scott likes to retweet. He I think does more Twitter than he does writing, but there are times in there, though, that are absolute gold things, not just from a humor perspective, but just little insights as to what goes into their world and what they how they view things and how they work. I just find it super interesting, because to be a writer has got to just be so. It's like being a musician, right? You put everything out there and it's just on display for the world, and you are just presenting yourself for judgment. And I don't know about you, but Star Wars fans might be a little difficult to please sometimes.
Well, we do it to some extent every week, so putting ourselves out there,
Yeah, well, yeah, true,
but not to that level, right? I get it.
I mean, 7 or 8 people doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I mean, what's like 10 people? They don't really listen. So
right, we love you guys, though. You guys are fantastic. You guys are not those 7. Well, you are. Never mind.
Yeah,
it's late. Like working on like 2 or 3 hours of sleep for the last.
I know.
48 hours.
Let's get out of here, because I know you're tired.
Yeah.
I think that was the last question. So
yeah, it was. This was a lot of fun. This was almost like a you and I doing a Q&A session here, just between the two of us. I thought this was kind of fun. We need to do another Q&A session actually, because it's been, God, 2 or 3 months now.
Oh, it's probably been longer than that. Honestly, it was in the spring.
Yeah, so I think we need to bring one of those back. We got so many things coming out. It's difficult to make time for it, but I think that's one there's so much that has happened and that's coming out, especially when we get visions here in 7 days from today. Man,
Mhm.
I think there's going to be a lot of questions that are coming out. I know we got edge of balance and everything else too. So I think we need to start building some time. We're just going to negotiate it all right here. Is this what you people want? Do you like Q&A? Do you guys like making sure your questions get on there? We love the questions. There's actually Albert and I both agree that one of, if not our favorite types of shows to do, because it's like this. It's people sitting around the table talking Star Wars.
Star Wars, yeah.
Yeah, and we love hearing y'all's perspectives on it because they're so different from what we've got. And
In a good way. In a good way.
No, yeah, no, that's absolutely perfect. It's just the way we like it. So, but anyway, so Patreon members, thank you so much. We hope you've enjoyed this presentation of the National Football League.
Oh, we need to have Jonesy drink more on these shows. It's humorous. So,
It's
okay,
not that bad.
I know. I'm just kidding. Headline tomorrow: Jonesy was drunk.
Oh God.
Film at 11. Okay, with that, we're gonna get out of here. I'll roll credits, and we'll be back here. I think next Tuesday, coming up to start talking about some more High Republic stuff. So we've got a couple different topics. We'll get into again some themes and stuff about the Jedi. Some of the stuff we've kind of talked about here, but we'll try to expand upon that as much as we can.
You guys basically got a preview of it. Sort of.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, that dollar goes far these days.
It really does. Okay, we'll see you guys on Tuesday.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.